It is often said that life is a journey, a series of chapters, each presenting its own unique challenges, victories, and growth. Yet there are moments when it feels as though we are on the brink of something new, something transformative. We can sense that the winds are shifting, the ground is moving beneath us, and we are being pulled into a new season, one that promises greater opportunities, higher purposes, and deeper fulfillment. In these moments, it's important to recognize that God's hand is often at work, guiding us toward this new season. But how do we know if it's God leading us into something new or just our own desires? There are certain signs, markers, if you will, that make it clear that you are entering into a season of change, a season of transformation, a season of divine growth. These signs are not always loud or obvious, but if we learn to listen and observe with intention, they can speak volumes about the direction God is guiding us. So if you feel like you're standing at the precipice of something new, something bigger than what you've known, consider these signs 7 unmistakable indicators that God is leading you into a new season. The first sign is a deep stirring within your heart. It's as if something inside of you has awakened, something that was once dormant is now alive and vibrating with a new sense of purpose. This stirring isn't just a fleeting feeling or a passing thought. It's more profound, more persistent, like a whisper that grows louder the more you listen. You feel an unshakable pull to something bigger than your current circumstances, something that resonates with the very core of your being. You might not fully understand it, but there's an undeniable sense that God is preparing you for something new, something far beyond what you've experienced before. This stirring often brings with it a sense of excitement mixed with fear. You feel nervous, unsure, and maybe even a little overwhelmed by the idea of change, but there is also a deep excitement that something greater is just ahead. It's like you can sense that the best is yet to come, and despite the discomfort of the unknown, you are being beckoned toward it. This internal stirring is the kind of signal that God plants within your soul, confirming that a new season is about to unfold in your life. Another sign that God is leading you into a new season is a shift in your environment. Often, when God is preparing you for something new, He begins to rearrange the things around you. This may come in the form of changing relationships, new opportunities, or a sudden change in your physical surroundings. These changes might seem random at first, but upon closer reflection, you'll realize that they're all part of God's bigger plan to set you up for what's to come. Maybe people you thought would always be in your life start to fade away, or new relationships form that feel divinely orchestrated. Perhaps your job, your home, or your community no longer feels like the right fit, signaling that it's time for a change. The shift in your environment can feel unsettling at times, but it's also a powerful sign that God is realigning everything around you to make way for the new season. These external changes often serve as the confirmation of the internal stirrings you've been experiencing, affirming that the direction you're heading in is divinely inspired. Just as God parted the Red Sea for the Israelites, He may be parting ways in your own life, clearing the path for the new season to take shape. As God leads you into a new season, another sign is the closing of doors. When God is calling you into something new, He sometimes closes doors that no longer serve your growth. These closed doors may be relationships, jobs, opportunities, or even certain ways of thinking. While it can feel like a loss at the time, you must trust that God is doing it to protect you and to guide you toward the best path for your future. It's often said that when one door closes, another one opens, and this is especially true when it comes to God's plan for your life. Closed doors can initially feel like rejection or failure, but they are actually God's way of sparing you from things that are not aligned with His purpose for you. Trust that He is leading you away from what is no longer beneficial so He can bring you to the places, people, and experiences that will help you fulfill your destiny. The closed door is not the end of the road, it is simply the beginning of a new path. A fourth sign that God is leading you into a new season is an increased sense of peace despite uncertainty. As you move through the changes in your life, you may not have all the answers. You may not know what the next step is or even how you'll get from here to there, but there is a deep sense of peace that settles within you. This peace isn't based on circumstances, it's based on the knowledge that God is in control. It's a peace that surpasses understanding, one that transcends your natural ability to comprehend what's going on. When God is leading you into a new season, He gives you the peace to walk through the unknown with confidence. Even in moments of uncertainty, there is a knowing deep inside that everything is going to work out. That peace is a sign that you are exactly where you need to be, even if the road ahead isn't clear. It's God's assurance that He is with you, guiding you and walking beside you every step of the way. Along with peace, another sign that God is leading you into a new season is the sudden release of fear and doubt. Fear and doubt are natural human responses when we face the unknown, but when God is calling you into a new season, He replaces those emotions with faith and courage. You may still feel nervous or unsure about what lies ahead, but there's a newfound boldness within you that overpowers the fear. This boldness doesn't come from your own strength, it comes from God. It's His Spirit empowering you to rise above the fear that once held you back. You begin to take steps that you never thought possible, trusting in His guidance and provision. The release of fear and doubt is a sign that you are stepping into the new season with the full support of God's strength, and that He is equipping you to face whatever challenges may come. Another unmistakable sign that God is leading you into a new season is the sudden burst of clarity. Often when we are in the midst of uncertainty, it's hard to see clearly. We are clouded by confusion, by our own limited understanding, and by the noise of the world around us. But when God is ready to move us into a new season, He opens our eyes and gives us clarity. This clarity isn't always immediate, and it might come in pieces, but over time the fog begins to lift, and you can see the path before you more clearly. You begin to understand why things happen the way they did and how they are all part of a bigger plan. You might receive insights during prayer, through Scripture, or even through the counsel of trusted mentors. This clarity reassures you that God is leading you step by step, and that He is faithful to reveal the next phase of your journey when the time is right. Finally, a sure sign that God is leading you into a new season is a renewed sense of purpose. When God is about to shift your life, He often places a new assignment or calling on your heart, something that calls you to step up and step out in faith. This renewed sense of purpose may come in the form of a new career direction, a new ministry opportunity, or a fresh vision for how you can impact the world around you. You feel a deep sense of responsibility, knowing that God has called you to this new task for a reason. This renewed sense of purpose energizes you, giving you the strength to move forward even when obstacles arise. You no longer feel aimless or uncertain about your direction. Instead, you are filled with passion, focus, and a clear understanding of what you are meant to do in this new season. As you reflect on these signs, this stirring within your heart, the shift in your environment, the closed doors, the peace despite uncertainty, the release of fear, the clarity, and the renewed sense of purpose, consider where you are in your own life. Are you sensing that God is calling you into a new season? Are you experiencing some or all of these signs? It's important to understand that a new season may not always look the way you expect. It may not be a sudden, dramatic change. It could be a slow and steady transition. But no matter how it unfolds, trust that God is faithful to lead you. Trust that He has a plan, and that this new season will bring with it growth, joy, and purpose. Even in the midst of challenges, know that God is with you, guiding you every step of the way. So as you move forward into whatever new season lies ahead, remember to stay grounded in your faith, open to His guidance, and confident in His love. The journey may be long and the path may be uncertain, but one thing is for sure: God is leading you, and His plans for you are always good. Embrace the new season with courage, knowing that the best is yet to come. When God is leading you into a new season, there's an unmistakable stirring within your heart, an internal pull towards something greater. This stirring can often bring a mix of excitement and fear, signaling a new direction, even though the full picture may not yet be clear. It's a reminder that divine transformation often starts from within. God often reshapes the external world around you when you're about to enter a new season, Changes in relationships, job opportunities, or even living situations can feel unsettling but are part of a divine realignment. These shifts are not random, they are steps toward creating space for new blessings and opportunities. A significant sign of entering a new season is when God closes doors that no longer align with your purpose. Though initially painful or confusing, these closed doors are God's way of guiding you away from paths that would hinder your growth, making room for better opportunities in alignment with His will. As you move through uncertainty, one of the clearest signs that God is guiding you is the peace He provides, even when the future is unclear. This peace, which transcends your natural understanding, confirms that despite not knowing all the details, God is in control and will guide you through the unknown. When you are about to step into a new season of life, one of the most profound signs that God is guiding you is an internal stirring that begins to take place deep within your heart. It is not something that can be easily ignored or brushed off. It's a stirring that resonates at the very core of your being, a sense that something is on the horizon, something greater, something that calls you to rise above your current situation. This stirring is not something that can be manufactured by your own will or desires. It is a divine pull, a prompting from God that shakes you, wakes you up, and prepares you for what is to come. This internal stirring often brings with it a feeling of restlessness. You might find yourself feeling unsettled or dissatisfied with your current circumstances. You may have everything you once thought you wanted, but there is a gnawing sense that something is missing. It's as if there is a hunger within you, a deep yearning that can't be satisfied by the things or achievements that once fulfilled you. At times, this can be frustrating because you may not know exactly what you are yearning for. All you know is that you feel the pull, and it is undeniable. This stirring doesn't always announce itself in loud, dramatic ways. It's not always the kind of clarity that comes with a bright light or a booming voice. Often it feels like a quiet but persistent whisper. Sometimes it's in the form of a thought that repeats itself, a vision that reoccurs, or a growing dissatisfaction that pushes you to consider the possibility of something new. You might find yourself thinking about a particular path, a new direction in life, or a calling that has been there all along, but you've been too distracted to notice. You may feel compelled to step out of your comfort zone and pursue something you once thought was beyond your reach. This is God's way of awakening something within you, something that may have been dormant or hidden, but is now being called to the surface. The uncertainty that accompanies this stirring is just as significant. When God stirs your heart to move in a new direction, it often does not come with all the answers. In fact, it's the uncertainty, the not knowing, that is one of the hallmarks of this season. You may have an idea of where you're being led, but the exact details are unclear. You might feel a sense of excitement about the potential that lies ahead, but you also feel an equal measure of fear and confusion. The path is not fully illuminated, and you are left to walk it by faith, trusting that each step will be guided by God's hand. Uncertainty, especially when it comes to matters of faith and life direction, can be intimidating. As humans, we crave security and certainty. We like to know that the choices we make will lead to positive outcomes. We want a roadmap, a clear signpost that tells us exactly where to go and how to get there. But when God is leading us into a new season, the certainty that we desire often doesn't appear right away. In fact, it's almost as though God intentionally leaves gaps in the plan, allowing us to lean not on our understanding, but on His wisdom and guidance. This lack of clarity can create a feeling of anxiety, even doubt in our hearts. You may wonder if you are truly hearing from God or if your desires are clouding the message He is trying to send. The internal stirring becomes a battle of emotions. On the one hand, you feel the pull towards something greater, something exciting and unknown, but on the other hand, you feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on you, making you question whether it is worth stepping out into the unknown. But it is in these moments of uncertainty that faith becomes the most important element. Faith is not just about believing in something when everything is clear and predictable. Faith is about trusting God even when the future is uncertain, even when the path is not fully revealed. When you feel that internal stirring and the accompanying uncertainty, God is asking you to trust Him more deeply. He's asking you to walk in the dark, holding His hand, confident that He will lead you to the light. This is the essence of faith, to trust that He knows what lies ahead, even if you do not. It's also important to recognize that the internal stirring often brings with it a sense of conflict. There is a tension between your old life and the new life that you feel being called to. The stirring you feel within your soul is not just a gentle nudge toward change, it is often a loud, undeniable call that challenges the comfort and security of your current reality. God is asking you to step away from what you have known and to embrace the unknown. This conflict can be intense, as it often requires you to confront fear, insecurity, and the possibility of failure. You may find yourself asking questions like, what if I fail? What if I make the wrong choice? What if it's not what I think it is? The uncertainty of the unknown can be overwhelming, and the fear of making the wrong decision can paralyze you. But this is precisely the moment where faith must rise up. In moments of uncertainty, faith does not promise the absence of fear, but it empowers you to move forward despite the fear. It gives you the courage to take one step at a time, trusting that God is guiding your every move. In addition to the internal stirring and the uncertainty, the other element that often accompanies this season of transition is a growing sense of expectation. Despite the lack of clarity, there is an undeniable sense that something good is coming, something better than what you've known. It's the quiet assurance that God is at work even when you can't see it, and that He is preparing you for something new. This sense of expectation fuels the internal stirring, and it gives you the energy and determination to move forward. When you are uncertain, it's easy to become discouraged. The unknown can feel daunting, and the doubts can begin to creep in. But the expectation that God is working behind the scenes, shaping, preparing, and orchestrating events in your life keeps you grounded. This is the confidence that you are walking in the right direction, even when you can't see the final destination. The expectation is the quiet voice that tells you that God's plans for you are always good, even when the way forward isn't entirely clear. As you walk through this season of stirring and uncertainty, it's important to remember that God's ways are often not our ways. He rarely reveals the full picture up front. The journey is just as important as the destination. In fact, the process of becoming, of allowing God to prepare you for what lies ahead, is one of the most profound parts of the journey. The uncertainty forces you to rely on God, to deepen your relationship with Him, and to trust that He knows what He's doing. It's in this season that your faith is stretched and your trust in God deepens. The internal stirring that you feel is God's way of drawing you closer to Him. It is a call to leave behind your old way of thinking, your old way of living, and to step into a new season of growth and transformation. The uncertainty that accompanies this stirring is not something to fear, but something to embrace. It is in the uncertainty that you learn to rely more fully on God, to step out in faith, and to trust that He is leading you toward a future far better than you can imagine. As you navigate this season of internal stirring and uncertainty, remember that God's timing is perfect. The stirring may be uncomfortable, the uncertainty may feel overwhelming, but in due time, God will reveal the next step. Trust that He is working in the background, preparing you for what is to come. Hold on to the peace that comes with knowing that God is with you, guiding you, even when the path is unclear. And in the moments of fear and doubt, remember that faith is not about having all the answers, it's about trusting that God holds the answers, even when you don't. When God is guiding you into a new season, one of the most profound and often unmistakable signs is a shift in your environment. This shift can occur in many forms, and while it may initially feel unsettling or even uncomfortable, it is a clear indication that God is realigning things around you to prepare you for what is to come. Change is inevitable when you are moving toward the new, and often the new season is accompanied by a change in your surroundings, be it relationships, job situations, living circumstances, or even shifts in your personal interests and focus. These changes can feel disorienting at first, especially if you are accustomed to the stability and comfort of your current environment. However, once you recognize the divine hand in these transitions, it becomes easier to embrace the shift, knowing that it is all part of God's larger plan for your life. The first indication that God may be moving you into a new season is often found in your relationships. People come and go in our lives, but when God is leading us into something new, He sometimes brings new people into our sphere while allowing certain relationships to fade. This can be a difficult process, especially if you are someone who values the relationships you've built over time. But the truth is, God's work in our lives often involves the realignment of relationships, both the ones that are no longer beneficial and the ones that will help propel us into our next season. Certain people may begin to drift out of your life, whether through distance, disagreement, or even a natural ending of a particular chapter. While these shifts can be painful, it is important to understand that not everyone is meant to go with you into the new season. Some relationships are seasonal, and as you step into a new chapter, God may be making space for new connections, new mentors, and new friends who are aligned with where He is taking you. These new relationships may challenge you in ways that the old ones didn't, pushing you to grow and expand your horizons. They may introduce you to new ideas, new opportunities, or new areas of life that you hadn't considered before. On the flip side, there may also be relationships that God is calling you to nurture and strengthen during this season of transition. Sometimes the shifts in your environment involve bringing deeper connections to the surface relationships that will become more significant as you move forward. These people are often in your life for a reason, and as God prepares you for the next season, He may be highlighting them as key players in your journey. Their presence in your life might become more pronounced, and they may serve as sources of encouragement, wisdom, or accountability as you navigate the challenges and opportunities ahead. Job changes are another key sign of environmental shifts. If you find yourself in a situation where your current job no longer feels fulfilling or aligned with your purpose, this may be an indication that God is realigning your professional life in preparation for the new season. You may experience frustration, dissatisfaction, or even a sense of complacency in your work, prompting you to seek out something more meaningful. These feelings are often not signs of failure or a lack of ambition, but rather a divine nudge that your current role or career path is no longer serving your growth. In these moments, it can be easy to question yourself. You may wonder if you're being ungrateful or unrealistic. You might feel the pressure of financial stability or the fear of venturing into unknown territory. However, when God is preparing you for a new season, He often opens doors that lead to opportunities you never expected. These may include a new job, a promotion, a career change, or a completely different direction that taps into your passions and gifts. These shifts may not always be immediate or obvious, but if you sense the pull towards something new, it's important to remain open and attuned to God's leading. Even more significant than job changes may be a shift in where you live. You might find yourself feeling dissatisfied with your current living situation, whether it's your home, your city, or even your country. These feelings of restlessness are often God's way of signaling that it's time to move on to a new environment. It could be as simple as outgrowing your current space, or as profound as being called to a completely new location that will better position you for your next season. The decision to move can be a daunting one, as it requires a level of faith and courage to leave the familiar behind. But when God is moving you into a new season, He will often provide the right circumstances, people, and resources to make that transition smoother than you imagined. In some cases, the environment may shift in a more internal way, with changes occurring in your mindset, beliefs, or interests. For example, you may find that your spiritual practices become more intense or more intentional as you move into this new season. Your interests and passions may shift, and you might feel drawn to explore areas that once seemed irrelevant or unimportant. This shift in internal environment is just as significant as external changes, as it is a sign that your heart and mind are being realigned with God's will for you. You might begin to feel a growing desire for deeper relationships, more meaningful work, or a renewed sense of purpose in areas that once felt mundane or unfulfilling. This realignment can be subtle, but over time you begin to realize that your desires are changing in ways that are in perfect harmony with God's plan. Changes in your environment can also manifest as opportunities that seemingly come out of nowhere. You might receive an invitation to join a project, a group, or an endeavor that aligns with your skills, passions, and sense of purpose. These opportunities often come at a time when you feel uncertain or even unprepared, yet they carry with them the potential for growth and transformation. These sudden opportunities are often God's way of preparing you for the new season, and while they may feel overwhelming or challenging at first, they hold the key to the new doors He is opening for you. When we experience environmental shifts, we are often faced with a mix of emotions. The unknown can be daunting, and the fear of change can cause us to hesitate. However, it is important to remember that these shifts are not random or arbitrary. They are part of God's divine orchestration. Just as God called the Israelites out of Egypt and led them into the promised land, He leads us through seasons of change to bring us into something greater. These shifts in our environment are designed to position us for the best possible outcome, even when we can't see the full picture. One of the greatest challenges of navigating these environmental shifts is the fear of leaving the familiar behind. We all have comfort zones, places, people, and situations that feel safe and predictable. It's natural to resist leaving what we know, especially if it feels stable or secure. Yet often it is in these moments of discomfort that God is doing His most significant work. The unfamiliar can feel intimidating, but it is also where growth and transformation happen. Moving out of your comfort zone is a key part of the realignment process, and while it may not always be easy, it is essential for stepping into the new season God has planned for you. During times of transition, it is crucial to stay grounded in your faith and trust in God's timing. The process of realignment is not always quick, and there may be moments where you feel like you are in limbo, not fully embracing the new season, yet but also not able to go back to your old environment. These moments of waiting are often God's way of preparing your heart for what is ahead. Patience becomes an important part of this process. Trust that, even in the waiting, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating the next steps. He is preparing you, strengthening you, and aligning the necessary circumstances and people to make this transition as smooth as possible. As the environmental shifts take place, it's important to remember that they are often part of a larger purpose, one that will ultimately draw you closer to God and align you more fully with His will for your life. These shifts in relationships, jobs, homes, and internal beliefs are all part of a bigger picture that God is carefully constructing. He sees the full map, the complete plan, and while we may only be able to see one step ahead, we can trust that each change is a part of His master plan. As you begin to recognize these shifts in your environment, it's essential to stay open to the changes and be willing to step out in faith. While it may be tempting to resist or hold on to the familiar, embracing these changes is the key to stepping into the new season God has prepared for you. Trust that God is guiding you, even when the road ahead is unclear, and believe that He is aligning everything for your ultimate good. Though the shift may seem difficult, it is an essential part of your journey, and it will lead you to a place where you can fully embrace your new season. When we face closed doors in life, it can feel like a harsh and painful experience. We often think of closed doors as obstacles, failures, or setbacks. It's easy to interpret these moments as signs that we're on the wrong path or that something is wrong with our efforts. After all, if we are trying so hard, why would the door not open? Why would the opportunity not materialize? But as we journey through life and grow in faith, we begin to see that closed doors, while frustrating, are often not just roadblocks but divine protection. In the grand scheme of things, God uses closed doors to shield us from harm, redirect our path, and set us on the course that will lead us to the destiny He has planned for us. It's important to realize that what feels like a rejection or a hindrance could very well be God's way of protecting us from something worse or guiding us towards something far better. One of the first aspects of closed doors as divine protection is the simple fact that not every opportunity is meant for us. We often get so caught up in our desires, our ambitions, and our plans that we fail to see the bigger picture. We might think that a certain job, relationship, or situation is the right choice, and when the door closes, we might struggle with feelings of disappointment or confusion. But God, in His infinite wisdom, knows what is truly best for us. He sees what we cannot see: the unseen dangers, the pitfalls, the unhealthy situations, and the wrong paths. When God closes a door, it is often to spare us from walking into a place that could hurt us, derail our progress, or lead us away from His purpose for our lives. For example, consider a job opportunity that you've worked hard for and you've prayed for it, believing it's the right step forward. You might have prepared for interviews, submitted applications, and put in everything you have, only for the door to close. You might feel devastated, confused, or even angry at the rejection. However, what you don't see is that the job you thought was perfect for you may have been a stepping stone to something else, or worse, it might have led you into an environment that would have stifled your growth, compromised your values, or even taken you away from your purpose. God, in His love and care for you, closed that door not to punish you, but to protect you from an opportunity that was never meant to be yours. He closed the door to prevent you from walking into a situation that could have derailed your life in ways you couldn't possibly foresee. In relationships, closed doors can also serve as divine protection. We all have people in our lives that we believe are the right fit for us, whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, or a colleague. We invest time, emotions, and energy into these relationships, believing that they will help us grow or lead us in the right direction. But sometimes a door to a relationship closes, whether through distance, disagreement, or simply a natural end, and it can feel like a loss. In these moments, it's hard to see why something that seemed so right at the time is now no longer a part of our lives. But God knows our hearts better than we know ourselves. He knows what relationships will build us up and what relationships could potentially harm us. He knows which connections will encourage us to become the best version of ourselves and which ones will distract us from our calling. For instance, consider a romantic relationship that seems perfect on the surface, but there are subtle signs of incompatibility or unhealthy patterns. Despite your desires and hopes for it to work out, the relationship begins to unravel. A door that once seemed to be opening for you now feels like it's closing. While the heartache and disappointment are real, trust that God has closed that door to protect you from a future where that relationship could have stifled your growth or led you down a path of hurt. You may not see it now, but in the future, you'll realize that the closed door was not a rejection, it was divine protection. The relationship wasn't part of God's plan for your life, and by closing that door, God is saving you from a future that might have been painful or damaging. Sometimes we encounter closed doors that seem to stall our progress entirely. We might apply for numerous jobs, send out multiple proposals, or seek opportunities that never seem to come to fruition. These closed doors can leave us feeling stuck, as though we are constantly hitting a wall. However, when viewed from a divine perspective, these closed doors are opportunities to trust God more deeply. Instead of rushing ahead and trying to force doors open, God is inviting us to slow down and trust in His timing. The timing might not be right yet. The path might not be fully revealed. But just because the door is closed now doesn't mean it won't open at the right moment. God is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities in ways that we cannot fully comprehend. In these moments of seeming stagnation, we are called to rest in the trust that God is never inactive. While we may be waiting for the door to open, God is often using that waiting period to prepare us for what's ahead. Maybe there's something we need to learn, a quality we need to develop, or a season of spiritual growth that needs to take place before we are ready for the new opportunity. Closed doors in these instances can be seen as God's way of saying, not yet, but wait. I'm preparing something even better for you. This perspective can help us endure times of frustration, reminding us that the closed doors are not an indication of failure, but of divine timing and preparation. Another important aspect of closed doors as divine protection is the way God uses them to redirect our path. Often, we can become so focused on a particular goal, vision, or destination that we fail to recognize that there might be a better path ahead. We may set our sights on a specific career, relationship, or life choice, and when a door closes, we feel devastated because we've invested so much of ourselves into it. However, when God closes a door, He is often redirecting our attention to something far greater. He sees the bigger picture where we are meant to go, what we are meant to do, and how we are meant to grow. What feels like a setback is often a redirection, guiding us toward the opportunities that truly align with our purpose. Think of it as a GPS rerouting. When we are driving toward a destination and an unexpected roadblock appears, the GPS doesn't just leave us stuck, it reroutes us to an alternative route. The closed door is that roadblock, and God's protection is in the rerouting. He might be taking us on a detour that ultimately leads to a better destination than we could have imagined. In the moment, we may feel frustration or disappointment, but in the long run, we come to see that the closed door was exactly what we needed in order to be aligned with God's perfect plan. In some cases, the closed doors we encounter are actually invitations to grow in our faith. They test our trust in God's goodness and sovereignty. When a door closes, we have the choice to either become disheartened or to lean deeper into God's promises. This is often where faith becomes more than just a belief, it becomes an active daily choice. Choosing to trust God in the face of closed doors is an act of faith that honors His wisdom and timing. It's in these moments that we develop the strength to persevere, the patience to wait, and the wisdom to discern God's voice in His leading. While it's tempting to force open the doors ourselves, it's in the act of waiting, trusting, and submitting to God's will that we experience true growth and transformation. Ultimately, the closed doors we encounter are not signs of failure, but signs of God's love and protection. They are a testament to His care for us, as He guides us away from paths that could lead us astray and toward the good plans He has for our lives. God, in His wisdom, knows the outcome of every opportunity, and He uses closed doors to protect us from harm, disappointment, and destruction. These closed doors, while painful in the moment, are often the very thing that sets us up for greater blessings and fulfillment in the future. Trusting in God's protection and His divine plan is key to navigating these closed doors with grace, knowing that they are ultimately for our good. When faced with uncertainty, the natural human response is often one of fear, anxiety, or confusion. The unknown can be unsettling, and when life presents circumstances that seem beyond our control or understanding, it can feel as though the ground beneath us is shifting. In these moments, peace might seem distant, a luxury that eludes us as we try to grasp for some form of stability. But in the midst of these turbulent times, there is a deep, unshakable peace that is available to those who trust in God. This peace does not come from external circumstances, nor is it dependent on having all the answers. Rather, it is a peace that transcends our understanding, a peace that comes from a deep, abiding trust in God's sovereignty and His faithfulness. The concept of peace amidst uncertainty is not about the absence of difficulty, but the presence of God's peace in the midst of it. It's a peace that is found when we choose to surrender our fears, anxieties, and need for control to God. It's a peace that allows us to stand firm, even when the storms of life rage around us, knowing that our hope is anchored in something far greater than our circumstances. This peace is not a fleeting emotion or a temporary escape from the realities of life, but a lasting, steadfast assurance that God is with us, guiding us, and ultimately in control of everything. One of the most profound aspects of this peace is that it is not dependent on the outcome of our situations. In a world where we often seek reassurance and control over our circumstances, the idea of peace without understanding the outcome can feel foreign. We want certainty, we want to know what will happen next, whether it's in our jobs, relationships, health, or future. Yet the peace that God offers is not about knowing the outcome, it's about trusting Him in the waiting, in the uncertainty, and in the not yet knowing. It's about learning to be present in the moment, even when we don't have all the answers. This peace is a gift that comes when we are willing to let go of the need to control our lives. Control is an illusion that many of us hold on to tightly, believing that if we can manage the details, we can avoid pain, disappointment, and failure. But the truth is, we cannot control everything. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes the more we try to control, the more anxiety and stress we invite into our lives. In contrast, the peace that God offers comes when we release control and allow Him to lead us, even when the path ahead is unclear. In the Bible, we are reminded time and time again to trust God with our lives. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." This verse speaks directly to the heart of peace in the midst of uncertainty. It acknowledges that we do not have all the answers, that our understanding is limited, and that we are not always in control. But it also promises that when we trust in God, when we choose to submit our lives to his leading, he will guide us. The peace that comes from trusting in God is not based on our circumstances, but on our faith that he will lead us where we need to go, even when we don't know what lies ahead. There are many examples throughout Scripture of individuals who faced uncertainty, yet found peace in God. One of the most powerful examples is the story of Jesus calming the storm in the Gospel of Mark. In this passage, Jesus and his disciples are on a boat when a fierce storm suddenly arises. The disciples are terrified, and they cry out to Jesus, asking if he cares that they are about to perish. Jesus, in his calm and steady manner, rebukes the storm and says, "Peace, be still." Immediately, the storm calms, and the disciples are left in awe. This story is a beautiful picture of the peace that Jesus offers in the midst of our own storms. The disciples were uncertain about their survival, yet in the presence of Jesus, they experienced peace in the face of the unknown. The same peace is available to us today, no matter what storms we are facing. Another powerful example of peace amidst uncertainty is found in the life of the Apostle Paul. Paul faced countless trials, persecutions, and hardships throughout his ministry. He was imprisoned, beaten, shipwrecked, and faced constant opposition. Yet, despite these difficult circumstances, Paul was able to write with incredible confidence about the peace that comes from trusting in God. In Philippians 4:6-7, Paul encourages the church not to be anxious, but to bring everything before God in prayer. He promises that when we do this, the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Paul understood that peace does not come from external circumstances, but from a deep, abiding relationship with God. It is a peace that surpasses understanding because it does not depend on everything going according to plan. It is a peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, even when our world feels chaotic. The peace that God offers us is not a passive peace, it is an active peace that works within us, shaping our hearts and minds as we navigate the uncertainties of life. This peace is not just the absence of worry, but the presence of God's strength and reassurance. It is a peace that allows us to move forward in faith, even when the future seems unclear. It is a peace that helps us let go of our fears and anxieties, knowing that we are held in the loving hands of a faithful God. In times of uncertainty, the practice of prayer and meditation on God's word can help us tap into this peace. When we are anxious or fearful, it can be easy to get caught up in our thoughts and allow them to spiral out of control. However, when we intentionally turn our focus to God through prayer and Scripture, we are reminded of his promises and his presence. Prayer allows us to cast our burdens on God, to express our fears and worries, and to invite his peace into our hearts. Through Scripture, we are reminded of God's faithfulness, his sovereignty, and his love for us. These practices help us refocus our minds and hearts, shifting our attention from the uncertainty around us to the certainty of God's character. One of the most profound benefits of experiencing peace amidst uncertainty is that it enables us to be a witness to others. When the world around us is filled with chaos and anxiety, the peace we carry can be a powerful testimony of God's presence in our lives. People will notice when we remain calm and composed in the face of difficulty, and they may wonder what makes us different. Our peace can serve as an invitation for others to seek the same relationship with God that brings us such comfort. In John 14:27, Jesus tells his disciples, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." The peace that comes from God is a gift that not only sustains us, but also points others toward the hope we have in Christ. Living with peace in the midst of uncertainty is a lifelong process. It's not something that comes naturally to us, especially in a world that often encourages us to control our circumstances and find security in material things. But as we grow in our faith and trust in God, we begin to realize that true peace is not found in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of God in the midst of our difficulties. It is a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that guards our hearts and minds, and a peace that leads us to deeper trust in the God who holds the future. As we learn to live with peace in uncertain times, we also learn to live with a greater sense of freedom. When we are no longer controlled by our fears, anxieties, and the need for certainty, we are free to follow God's lead, even when the path is unclear. We are free to step into the unknown with confidence, knowing that we are not alone. And we are free to trust that, no matter what happens, God's peace will sustain us. God's peace in the midst of uncertainty is not a fleeting emotion or a temporary escape. It is a deep, abiding presence that carries us through life's storms. It is a peace that allows us to rest in the knowledge that God is with us, that He is in control, and that He is working all things together for our good. And as we trust in His peace, we are reminded that even in the most uncertain times, we are secure in His love and care.